Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to today's panel discussion. Please add in the chat box where you're coming from and feel free to use the chat box. We will open the mics later on so that everybody can get a chance to speak. Right now, if you could just mute your mics to make sure that we're not getting any background noise. All right, so we've got 4 panelists today, and we've got different perspectives. Even we're taking different perspectives, even though we actually have similar ideas. We know each other quite well, and we know that we have similar ideas, but we've taken 4 different perspectives for, I think my video is not showing, for this panel discussion. My perspective, you can see it there, and we'll get to that in a minute. All right, so a little bit about me. I'll be chairing this panel discussion. I've been, I guess I started learning fully online as a student on an MA program in 2003. So I know what it's like firsthand to learn fully online. I provide free professional development, online professional development for educators worldwide on a Moodle website. If you want to know anything about Moodle, I guess I'm the Moodle lady, as many call me. Dr. Ramesh is also a Moodle expert who's been using Moodle for a long time. We all know each other. I hope you're reading the bio there. Because we've been working together, I guess, for at least, well, over 10 years. I think we all met around 2007. Ludmila Smirnova, you can read about her. I think this appears in the seminar page as well. So all the information is there. You can read about Ludmila. We don't want to take too much time here because we've got a lot of information to share with you. And Dr. Ramesh Sharma, who's coming to us from India, Ludmila's from the United States, and Ebba is a professor, and she comes to us from Sweden. So I'm going through that quite quickly. All right, so we're going to get started, and I'd like to invite you to please add questions in the chat box as we go, or just take notes for yourself. If you're interested in getting the chat afterwards, I'll be happy to share it with you. And you can also actually take it at the end. All right, so my perspective, or the perspective that I'm going to take in this panel discussion, is the learner, and feedback and reflections from the learner. I've been using Moodle, as I said, for a number of years. Specifically, I've been admin and teaching through my own Moodle site since 2003. Moodle has an amazing tracking system, if you're familiar with Moodle. It's, I hear background noise for some reason. If you've got your mic open, if you could just close it so that we don't get any sounds. Thank you. All right, so it has a tracking system. Believe it or not, it tracks the students and the teachers, actually every user's click. Every time a user clicks or interacts with the content or in discussions, whether the student or the user is viewing or actually participating in the activities, Moodle tracks it. So there are reports, and I mentioned this last time when we talked about how to evaluate online courses in the lecture. And if you're interested in, if you weren't here for the lecture, you can also get that video recording. Progress reports are always available. What I do, and I've been doing, and I really advocate this, is to have ongoing interventions. In other words, make sure that you know what's going on. It's not that you create a course and you pray and hope that it works. You can make sure that it does work by continuously going in seeing what's going on, providing progress reports, watching the students, observing and paying attention to the reports and what's going on to make sure that everyone is getting the most out of the course, because these courses, any course actually, is about the learner, and we want to cater to the learner. It's not about the teacher lecturing, not anymore, and not online. When you can make a difference, you can actually change the course as you go. What I do is I ensure that there is peer learning, that the learners are engaging with the content and with the activities. And these are the reports that I can get from Moodle. I know exactly who's interacting with who and how much time they spend engaging in the discussion forums, with the activities, and with each other. I can also find out if there's any incidental learning or any other communication going on beyond the LMS, beyond the online course. And this is sometimes really important, because you might wonder, why are they spending so much time outside the LMS? Maybe there's more interesting things happening outside your course. So this is something that you might want to ensure that your course is giving your students everything that is possible. And this you can only do by checking to make sure that there are interactions, first of all, students with students, and then with the content. Are they viewing the content? Are they adding their own content? There is the possibility on Moodle, at least, but I think also on Canvas, to add student folders, so that not only is your content shared with the students, the sources that the instructor adds, but also students have their own sources. So if they're adding to it, they're even more engaged. And also reflections on the content and feedback on the content. I use Hypothesis. I don't know if any of you are using Hypothesis. It's completely free. And it's an LTI that you can use on your Moodle. What it does is it allows learners, and this is only for PDF files, by the way, to interact with the PDF file. They can add notes to it, and the instructor can actually access and see how much they interact. The more notes that they take means that there's more engagement with the content. So you don't just want to put content out there, you want to make sure that the content is being used. And of course, the activities, lots of activities, and you want your students to be actively engaged in all these activities. And I'm curious to know how much time they spend on the activities. If the activity and they spend, very, very little time on it, maybe this is something that I can correct. And I can do this in an online course. I can actually make changes to suit the students. And this is what I mean when I say interventions. And of course, the result, that's important too, if you're giving quizzes, tests of various kinds, essays, and so on. And you can also check the quality, more about the quality later on. So my perspective is to make changes while the course is going on, not to hope and pray that everything will be just fine and that's it. I follow an experiential learning, student learning format by Kolb. I think Kolb seems to represent my beliefs in learning, and that is, I want my learners to be able to sense what's going on, not just to get the information in a cold way, but actually to feel it, to experience it, to engage with others, to make it as human as possible, if that's possible in an online course. Because remember, behind everybody is actually a person. We're not talking about robots. So I want to set the course up for success. I want to ensure success. To do that, I need to be there. When I design the course, I need to take the learner in mind, but you never know what's going to happen. there are always surprises, at least from my experience. You never know what's going to happen and how learners are going to accept the information, what problems they're going to have, if it's going to be boring for them, if they're not going to be engaged, whatever. So I want to be able to make changes. The instructional design that I use is, I base it on Cope's experiential, the content. I want to make sure that it's interactive, and that's what I check for. I want it to be engaging, relevant, and authentic. From my perspectives, learners should be able to use the information and experience whatever they learn in real life, not just to get a degree or to pass a test, but beyond that. The instructor does everything he or she can to make learners satisfied, but not just satisfied for the sake of satisfaction, but happy with the learning, happy to learn, excited about learning. Providing learners with autonomy helps make this possible from my perspective. The learner should be active. It's the learner that we should keep in mind more than anything else. What I do is I get the learners to provide feedback and reflections. What they do throughout the course as they learn is they document through videos and PowerPoint, interactive PowerPoint presentations, and you've got the tools there and the links if you're interested. They're understanding. They can do this individually or with their peers. Creating videos, from what I've seen, provides them with confidence. They get very confident when they're the ones doing the teaching. They're documenting what they're learning, and making mistakes is learning. So if things go wrong, that's fine. That's part of your learning. And the minute they realize that they can make lots of mistakes, it's fine, it empowers them and makes them feel that it's okay. It's a learning process. They also showcase their progress, their accomplishments, and the process through videos and, of course, through interactive PowerPoint presentations. And they reflect. The reflections are amazing. I mean, just watching the videos and listening to them or reading their reflections helps me understand what goes on for the learner, because they're very, very personal, and they get personal. And I think that's important, the fact that they can feel that they're safe and they can express themselves and how they feel. The reflections, I see there's a typo there on learning. They use multimedia to reflect. So it's text, of course, and they use Padlet, Wakelet, Voki. I allow them to choose whatever is suitable for them, whatever works for them. And feedback. Feedback is not a way for the organization, the school, to find out whether the students were satisfied or not. It's about their feelings and what they went through. And again, it's through multimedia and interactive. So that was my part. And we're going to go on to Quality Matters with Professor Smirnova.
Thank you. I would be happy to share my insights and my experience at some point, because that's where my college right now is. We adopted Quality Matters. But I've learned, I started teaching online since 2002. And I was at the conference in California, in San Francisco, on quality of online teaching, and there was a presentation on quality matter, and that's since then I was following in Quality Matters. So just a little bit of history about Quality Matters, how it started. Nellie, move the slide. Yes, thank you. So Quality Matter began as a FIPSI program. They wrote a grant, a group of educators wrote a grant um, for fund for the improvement of post-secondary education, and was awarded Maryland Online in 2003. And they worked together three years. And then Quality Matter started bootstrapping, and in 2014 they separated and became a separate online nonprofit organization. So, and the next slide, so the Quality Matters underlying principles are collaborative, meaning they work together with others to achieve their mission. Collegial, as educational professionals, they are working together to help their learners, utilizing a continuous improvement model centered around student learning and the research. There are many factors, Nellie, next, that are affect quality of online learners' experience. And if you see these slices of a pie chart, so the first one is course design. So you start thinking about and planning. It's a very important factor that impacts quality. So you start thinking and planning before you start offering a course. The dark gold slice represents course delivery. So how it will be delivered, it's implementation of the course. So the next is about course content, which is all of the decisions that institutions have to make to select the textbooks or use open educational resources. And institutional infrastructures, the next piece of pie that's really important, meaning the institution is institution prepared to accept online learners? Do learners know that they are going to take online, fully online or blended courses? And the light gray, number 6, is about faculty readiness. No, I missed the learning management system. That's what Nellie was saying about, speaking about Moodle. And it's very important to know that how is learning management system foster active learning. And as we know, in my experience, Ramesh experience, and Ebba experience with Moodle, it really allows students be engaged. And faculty readiness, are faculty prepared to teach online? And the main part is that's what Nellie's focus was on learners. Are learners ready to learn? Have they been oriented online teaching and in instruction? Out of all these factors, Quality Matter addresses a few, mainly on course design, and that's why they have rubrics, Quality Matter rubric. And quality program reviews address faculty readiness, learner support, teaching technical support, and teaching support and course design. So next, Nellie, Quality Matters became an international standard for online learning, with more than 1,000 members institutions from 48 states with 80 countries, uniting 60,000 members of Quality Matters, and continues to impact the online learning experience through both faculty development and also course reviews, and providing faculty a respected pathway to become Quality Matter certified reviewers. So there are special courses, workshops, online webinars. If you really want to know more, there is a website also, and of course there is Twitter. If you follow Twitter for quality matter for quality programs. Quality matters recognizes Nellie next stakeholders who care about quality span with wide range from accreditors and legislators to learners and employers, and all of them are have a vested interest in ensuring quality online learning is really taking place across the educational spectrum. But to begin the journey, you must know where you are headed, and destination was kind of decided. So the next question is, next slide, Nellie. The institution and instructor should ask a question: what will your quality assurance goals consist of? How will you know when you've reached them? And that's why organizations and institutions have many reasons for assuring quality. Take a moment and think about what your goals are. Are they goals to improve the course or create professional development opportunities for faculty and staff? Or would you like to demonstrate a quality assurance for an outside evaluator, external evaluator? Is your campus all continuous improvement, or do you want to do some benchmarking to see how well your courses are doing against an international standard set? Is your goal to change the institution to one of the that puts the quality at the forefront of the course design? And that's just this having worked and quality matters more than 10 years, they noticed that all institutions, all participants of quality matters go through these steps, through this process. And it starts from on the bottom step, ad hoc, that at this step in the journey, the quality matter rubric may be used periodically, episodically, and professional development is not required. They just recommended. And then the next step is quality assurance, putting a supported process in place, and professional development process. There are reviews, internal reviews, and there are professional development workshops offered. And I think my particular college is, I think, at this transition into the next stage, which is continuous improvement. It includes implementing an official review process and taking the data from the outcomes of reviews and to make changes across courses. So we are using quality matters, and that's just last summer, all teachers, all professors were required to take a special online course on online learning, how to teach online. And everybody was introduced to course a rubric review. So, and that will move to benchmarking step, and that was including ensuring the showcasing the courses, quality matter certified reviewers, and the highest level on this ladder is the institutional change, and it's hard to reach because it requires institutional infrastructure. It's internal institutional insurance, educators, and research. It requires publications and presentations and community recognition. But regardless of where where you are aspired to be, all these efforts are important in moving the quality of online learning forward. So quality matter is the next
10
slide.
minutes have gone by, just to let you know.
Okay, yes, I'm on it. Quality matter is adaptable. And so it's tying quality assurance and quality matter to your strategic goals, course reviews, for quality benchmarking, and providing ongoing faculty professional development, and a few of ways that institutes leverage quality matter for quality assurance. But regardless of all this organizational culture or governance structure, size, or resources, any institution can implement quality matters. And its quality matters is about quality, and quality for quality matters is better than good enough, more than average, and about an 85% level or above. But for quality matters, 100% perfection is not the goal. Progress, not perfection. So we all know that perfection is none of us is perfect. So quality matters is quality assurance is an open, supportive environment with a continuous improvement approach. And quality matters really credible because the results show, as you saw, that how many institutions are using quality matter, and the results are really amazing. Instances, and it's adaptable to your needs, whether you are improved courses or you improved institutionally. It's flexible to the needs of a professor or the whole institution, and it is a turnkey approach that includes all the elements necessary for quality assurance program. And these are the quality matter rubrics, address online and blended courses components, and are the assessment instruments and quality matter for higher education, for higher education publishers, for K through 12. And so all these are rubrics. And what is wonderful about these rubrics that they all have applications and clarifications, and those who are using those rubrics, they have very many annotations that help professors and educators to use. And so they course standards, they many ways to meet. And they, why? Because they are based on research and experience, and those reviewers and those participants and the designers of quality matter, they base their, they update all the time. The rubrics are updated because they get new results. So they are research supported, and they're based on best practices, and they provide rich annotations. So there are 8 standards. The next slide. Yes, these are the 8 standards that guide effective and quality design courses. They are about course overview and introduction, and this rubric really provides not only guidelines and benchmarks, but also annotations and best practices. So when the faculty looked at those criteria, they really are guided how to better design the course. So how you start the course, how you introduce yourself, you introduce your content, so learning objectives. And what is the most important about these 8 standards, it's the essence of it is alignment. All 8 parts are aligned. So learning objectives, how you base your learning objectives on how they're connected with learning content, the content. So it determines if the course module level learning objectives and are measurable, written for the learning with the learners in mind. So assessment and measurement tools look for assessment actually measures stated learning objectives. So they are aligned with the objectives. There are the formative assessment, summative assessment, pre-assessment. So, and so these these standards are used by different institutions differently, but no matter how you design your own approach in your institution, those standards are always kept in mind. So Nellie, so
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry that you had to go through that
I
so
know.
quickly,
Wow,
but that's part of the panel. All right, so our next speaker is Dr. Ramesh Sharma, who's coming to us from India, and he's going to speak to us specifically about rubrics.
Okay, thank you, Nellie, and friends, welcome. As Professor Smirnova has already told about rubrics, that these are the special kind of grading methods which allow the teachers to be quite objective. You know, if you fix it, then so it brings out various those challenges of online assessment under control for the teacher. Next, please. Okay, so we can create rubrics for various purposes. Broadly, we divide them, either they are as analytic rubrics or holistic rubrics, where if we want to work on each criterion separately, means we want to analyze it, or as a holistic approach in which the overall assessment is being taken care of. Next, please. And then we can create them either for journal purpose, which is briefly about covering all the aspects, or a specific dimension of our course. The challenge is that if it is journal rubric, it can be used across various activities, but then it reduces the reliability of that. Whereas if we create specific rubrics, the advantage is that it is easy to score. But then there is a challenge that in this case, the students can hunch the answer for that. Next, please. And then to create them, we can follow these two approaches, either top-down approach, starting with our main criterion and then going down, or from bottom up, means we take the sample of the student work and then create our which is inductive in nature, whereas the top-down approach is deductive in nature. Based on these kind of situations, we can create our rubrics for that. Next, please. Yes, this is an example. It is a live case for which we use for our students of Bachelor of Vocational Studies. There for their admission purpose, but we tell them that we ask them to write a statement of their purpose, means why do they want to take admission into Bachelor of Vocational Studies. So we want to check their motivation, their knowledge of that particular vertical. Vertical means tourism, early childhood care management, and retail management. These are the verticals, means the options of available there. So the students, we want to check these things with them. Now, why do we use these? Because these bring out transparency. It gives a uniform and objective grading in the marks for there. Our job becomes faster because it is automatic in a way. And then students can also understand that what they are expected to do, because they see that rubric. From there, they can make an assessment that what they need to explain in their assignment or in their work. Next, please. It can cover various kind of purposes: to test the skill attainment, to test the behavioral changes, to test the attitudinal changes, and across all the disciplines, these things, they can be used. Next, please. Okay, next, please. Then what should a good rubric have? First thing, it should have a concise, exact criteria, its description and rating. These three things, they are very much important. Then it should be written in easy language so that it is clear to both the teacher as well as to the students. The language should be said like that, means keeping it simple, not complex. Otherwise, people can get overwhelmed. And then the target, the base should be the learning outcomes of a course. What do we expect from there? Because that needs to be checked there. And then on the basis of these learning outcomes, we focus on our content, what will be the delivered from there, so that the grade, its validity, and next please, the reliability, they both are in tune with what we are going to achieve. So how do we make it? We describe our task, that what is going to be evaluated. Then we, in the rows and in the columns, we give the criteria and a rating scale, and then the description of each performance. Let me show you the example here. And there are various tools for that. I will show these examples according to that. It is as simple as you can use Microsoft Excel spreadsheet to create your rubric. And the good part is that those of you who are using Google Classroom can import a rubric created in spreadsheet. You can have Google spreadsheet or Microsoft Excel or any other spreadsheet program. So you can see here that the marks are say like 0, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. This is their scaling, and the range is from poor up to excellent. And then the criterion like introduction, analytics, discussion, conclusion. So these three things, they are important for us to define. And this is how, if you are using Google Classroom, where you can find under when you go to the classroom materials, create an assignment, and then, but this rubric is available only in the Google Classroom Enterprise, the education suite, not the personal local Gmail ID. You won't find it into that. Next, please. And here is the next software. You can see that how it is created. Once you select, you define your question, and then it asks you to the criterion for that, and the points, and the level, that what level this needs to be created. Next, please. And this is the Moodle. Dr. Nellie has already clarified it. You need to go, when you create an assignment or any other activity, you will find it by going to the grade option among that. And then when you select it from the grading method, there you can select it as either as the rubric or next simple grading or direct grading, and etc. Once you select it, then it will ask you to define your criterion, to describe that, give the marks accordingly, then you can create it. And then the benefit is that the assessment becomes objective. Next, please. And then this is also another free platform, Canvas. This is a sample of the courses which I have already offered from there. Next, please. So if you want to use a rubric in Canvas platform, by going to the left panels in the course structure up there, you can select the rubrics, and then you can add your things, like it will ask you to have a title, and then various criterions, its rating, and the point. You keep on describing them, and your rubric is created. So the students can see, teacher knows that how it is done. There are some other software tools available, like Quick Rubric. You can use it. Next, please. Then these are the steps of evaluating online courses. Means first you need to identify what is a good online course, and Professor Smirnova and Dr. Nellie, they have described beautifully that what a good online course should be like that. And then we can categorize them into learning outcome, course levels, introduction, etc., from there. And then we need to decide our assessment level, whether it is means 3 point, 5 point, whatever it is there. And then for each level, we need to describe the criterion. Next, please. Okay, this is an example. It is under Creative Commons attribution license from the California State University in Chico. So here the learner sport, and then they have created it into 3 categories, say like baseline, effective, and exemplary. Next, please. And this is another an example from the University of Oklahoma, their online course evaluation rubric. The website link is there. You can check it and download it if you want to have an example of that. So thank you so much.
That was very, very fast. I don't know how you did it, but you did it. All right. So
I wanted to be within time limit.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, so our next panelist is Professor Ebba Ossiannilsson, who's going to talk to us about value chain and quality. Ebba?
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you so much for the kind invitation, and Nellie, for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be with you. I have been in this area for some 20 years by now, and my specialty is about quality, so it is a perfect place to be. I did already my PhD in about benchmarking e-learning in higher education, and since that time, I'm dedicated to quality. But first of all, what do we really mean when we talk about quality? Because quality is in the eye of the beholder. It's also important to ask the always nice question about the 5 double V, the whom, quality for whom, for what, when, why, which, but also the H question, how. And I understand that we today very much talk about how, not at least, but also for whom, because there are so many stakeholders, as Ludmila was saying as well. Nowadays, I never have any presentations without talking about the SDGs, and especially number 4, as we all know, because we can't talk about quality if we don't relate it to something and to put it in a context. The new initiative by UNESCO, it's called the Futures of Education, and that is going beyond the SDGs, as it's taken another perspective. It is about learning to become. So it more take the learner's perspective, which already Nellie talked so much about in her presentation. Instead of what we are very much used to do, we take them from the institutions or the teacher's perspective. So we need, even when we talk about quality, we need to change perspective. And that is really what this new initiative is about, Futures of Education, learning to become. And they have also approached the stakeholders to give their input. Next one, so it was good, good timing. Also, when we talk about quality, we have to see, is it more like norm-based quality, or is it more like process-based quality enhancement, or is it accreditation by someone? And who is that someone, in case that is the case? So there is the whole spectrum in between. And somewhere in between, we have maybe benchmarking. Benchmarking is actually my specialty as well, and that was my dissertation about. Benchmarking is a self-evaluation model, which is very useful, because when you evaluate yourself, then you are more committed in case there are needs for any change. Next one, please. Some years ago, I was the research leader for this research by ICD, the International Council for Open and Distance Education. We were some researchers, and we surveyed different kind of quality models around the globe. Even quality matters, Ludmila. And we looked at them and very deeply, and we also categorized them if they were more like accreditation, if they were more like benchmarking, if they were more like guidelines or frame of references, for example. So this is the picture on the right-hand side is this mapping. We surveyed over 40 plus different kind of models, and all the models are also briefly described in this report. Next one, please. We also, they were very similar in many ways, but we also saw that a good frame of reference need to be multifaceted. It need to be dynamic, because new things are coming in all the time from around us. It need to be mainstreamed. It need to be well known among those who should use it and those who are involved, including the learners. It need to be representative, and it need to be multifunctional. So those are some criteria for guidelines. And it's also important to look at which kind of level are we looking at. Are we more looking at the accreditation, for example, the macro level, authorities, etc.? What is happening in the country? Or is it more like meso level at the institution, or at the course as such? And even at nano level, which is about the people. There are always people behind models and quality models. And those need to be aligned. So I'm very much talking about the chain value and the ecosystem of quality. You need to have this holistic approach. You can't just look at the course as such, as also Ludmila was saying she explained about the quality matters, and I will say more about it later on. Next one, please. One of the models we looked at was this e-excellence manual and framework from the European Association for Distance Teaching Universities. I serve myself as a reviewer for them, both for course level and institutional level. And I have also been involved in editing the 3rd edition of the manual. And as you can see with this e-excellence, there are those 6 dimensions. It is about strategic management, curriculum design, course delivery, student support, and staff support. And you very much recognize them from Quality Matters. Next one, please. Another one which we looked at, which I'm also quality reviewer for, is ECB check. And you see again, it is the same kind of dimensions which are coming back all over again. Well, I should say said about e-excellence, there are those 6 areas, and they are divided into 35 benchmarks. And then there are indicators, of course, and that is the same for ECB check, and the same for Quality Matters as well. Next one, please. There is another one which is also similar, but another approach, but that you recognize the same areas of dimension. This is from Badrul Khan. He has this 8 dimensions: pedagogical, technological, interface design, evaluation, management, resources and support, and ethical and institutional. By the way, he has translated that one to OER and to MOOC and to microlearning as well. So to summarize, all those 40 models which we looked at, and I did this also previously in my research, it is about, as we have seen now from example from 3 models, it is about services for staff and for students. It is about the products, the curriculum, the course design, the course delivery. It is about strategies and planning and development. And all those need to be aligned and to be seen in an ecosystem. Because if there is something wrong with something, as you know, the saying that quality is not as good as the full chain. And if there is a broken something in between, then everything will be in some kind of problem. But what is also important, and what also has been emphasized here, is the learners. And all those dimensions, areas, indicators, whatever we call them, need to be seen from the learner's perspective. That is why I and my colleagues have put the learner in the center. And there are also especially important dimensions for the learners for online learning, and that is about that is also mentioned in more or less in those models which we surveyed. It is about flexibility, interactivity, accessibility, personal learning, transparency, participation, presence, and trust, just to mention some. Next one, please. Yes, there is another very good guide, which is called the Design Book for Online Learning. And they have also a very nice pie. It is popular. And that is, as you can see, it is how might we create learning experiences on something that is fun, ridiculous, business-like, parliament-like, school-like, laboratory dimensions, virtual, physical. But I think I choose this one because the fun aspect is very important. It should be fun to learn, otherwise you will not learn. That's why I like this one, because it's so much pointed out. Next one, please. So this is also from that guidelines about, so they put together the service design, the pedagogy, and the psychology of learning, and also the dimensions about cognitive dimensions like memory and attention, emotions, and motivation. And here again, I think emotions is very, very much important, because if you are not have any feelings for something, then it's difficult to learn something. So whatever kind of rubric we have, we need to have those dimensions as well, because it is about people, it is about you and me. Next one, please. Also from this framework, they pointed out different kind of 6 golden rules. For example, to provide a channel for social interaction, to manage your expectation, to give feedback continuously, to be active and to activate, organize content into modules. Microlearning is rather popular and trendy right now. And of course, to be conscious. Next one, please. So maybe again to summarize, when you look at quality, first of all, you can look at those 8 Ps, which I call it. I have done so much about quality, so what I have researched and what is very much discussed right now is about those 8 Ps. It is about people, processes, practices, participation, policy, partnership. We saw that there were many stakeholders, for example, who have an interest in quality. It is about products and about perspectives. And it is important to stress that whatever kind of model we are using, it needs to be recognized for those who are using it, for those stakeholders involved. And it need also to be recognized by the country's quality system, whatever they have. It need to be open, it need to be inclusive and transparent. And of course, consensus. Next one, please. Next one, please. If we really would like to implement what we call and what we see as good quality in online learning, it need to have several kind of aspects and dimensions involved. But most of all, to inspire meaningful change, you must make a connection to the heart before you can make a connection to the mind. So whatever kind of rubric we are talking about, whatever kind of strategy, whatever kind of model or frame of reference, or whatever we call it, we need to have it implemented in ourselves as well. And Nellie know by now that my motto is caring is sharing and sharing is caring. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I just want to show you that you'll be able to get this PowerPoint presentation. There are references that you'll be able to also access. All right, so now we're going to put away the screen and start our discussion. All right.
Is it possible to open the video? Because it's
yes, of course. I was just going to do that. All right, so now everybody can unmute themselves, even though I think that was done. All right, so feel free to open your camera if you wish. You don't have to, but it's up to you. All right, so we're gonna open for questions, but before we do, I'd like to ask the panelists, you know, you took a perspective. What is your perspective, Ludmila? How do you view an online course? If you could share that, you've been doing it for years. So what's your viewpoint? We don't hear you, sorry, you need to unmute yourself.
Yes.
There we go.
Teaching already almost 2 years still. Well, my perspective on quality of teaching, those quality standards are important to keep in mind. And before you start teaching, you have to know what this involves. Because it's just, there was a discussion at my college and some professor was saying, I will just take my face-to-face course and I put it online. No, it doesn't work, because online teaching has its principles and it's different. That you have to, when you design online course, you have to visualize. So that's where quality comes. You have to know how it works, and but some principles are the same, as we discussed during our first lecture. Principles of effective instruction and best practices. So we discussed that. Of course, it's all, you follow those principles, but in online, you have to kind of visualize. When I design online courses, and right now all courses are online, I always think how students react, how will they do. I now in my online courses I implement brain breaks, because the all day with Zooming people and students, and by doing that I also teach my students to use brain breaks in there when they teach little kids. And there is, by the way, an application just right now. I just implemented it. It's called Move It. There is an extension on Google Chrome, and you set it up. You add it to your Google browser, Chrome browser, and you set it up for 30 minutes, for 50 minutes, and it forces you to stand up and do something. I already got several times. So it's important because again, you know, it's important to know those principles, and also important to know how brain works, how learning, what is good learning, how to engage students in active learning. And there are so many books right now, interesting books about brain research, follow brain research, and know that if you don't engage students, if you don't implement movement, then students just falling asleep. And especially right now when you cannot force them to turn on camera, and you speak to the black boxes instead of students being like in a real classroom. You don't know what their reactions are, what they think, what they do, and that also causes how to design a course. Or how design a session where students engaged and they work and they show that they're learning. And a very effective right now model is HyperDocs. I use and I design some lessons using HyperDocs, because HyperDocs is an inquiry type of approach where you design, because again, it's online, you design assignments where students immediately show how they learn, and you connect them with others. You give them tools where they can express themselves. Nellie was saying about this too. So you can, and they also share with what Eva was saying about sharing is caring. I also love this motto, and I use it in my classes, because they really know, students really know when, and the transformation is coming when students can share and can then explain what they just learned. That's why in this
Ludmila, sorry, I'm going to have to
yes, of course,
stop you. You could talk forever. Yes, of course. Right. We realize that we all have something to say. So right. Ebba, sorry. And then Ramesh, that's okay. Sorry for having to stop you there. Yes, Ebba, if you can just unmute yourself, and then we'll go quickly to questions. Just a few words about how you view online learning. I know you've been doing it for years, and you did mention that quality is, you know, it's individual. What is quality for one is not quality. And I love that, because that just means that we all start from the beginning. So what are we doing if quality is, you know, up to you, whatever you think is quality?
Yes, I have some experiences and some advices. First of all, we need to know learn to know our learners. And that is maybe more important than ever before. We have not seen that during the pandemic when everything went online, because we didn't know. We know the names of the students, of course, but we didn't know their circumstances and their homes, and if they were sharing, you know, one mobile telephone with 6 siblings and parents who were maybe unemployed or maybe dying or whatever, and with no internet or whatever. So we need really to learn to know our learners. And sometimes the learners are somewhat different than at campus, because sometimes those who can't come to campus for different kind of reasons maybe choose online. I mean, sometimes maybe they are living in the rural areas, maybe they all have disabilities, maybe they have, you know, some kind of, maybe sometimes they are a bit different, so to say. So that is one thing. So what I also stress very much when I had possibility to talk is about the ecosystem, because the quality is not stronger than the weakest chain. And that is why it is important to see the ecosystem, the holistic systems. And then I would like to quote my dear friend, and I think many of us know him, Börje Holmberg, who was from Sweden, by the way, and he was one of the pioneers in distance education. And he already talked that he died actually last week. I know him in person because he's living in my city, and I used to meet him. He talked already about the didactic emotional conversation with distance education. At that time, we didn't talk about online learning, but we talked about distance education. So the emotional conversation, there need to be a conversation between the learners by the learners and the teachers, but also with the interface and with the material and this kind of thing, things. And then, as I also stressed in my presentation, we need to ask us those questions.
I think that's, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Who, what, whom, when, etc. Before maybe we were talking about how, but I really, as I started to talk, to learn to know your learners, who are they and what are their needs, and that was also one of the reasons why I choose to have the first slide about the futures of education. And it is futures because there are many futures, and those futures are looking different for each of us and for each of our learners. So I will stop there.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing the idea of conversations. That's what we need. People need to not only be seen, they need to be heard, their voices. And it's really important. I think that's the fun part, really. People enjoy that. All right. Yes, Dr.
Yes, that was maybe my last point. It needs to be fun. I think I said it so many times. It needs to be fun, and you really need to involve the emotions. Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Ramesh?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. I'll make a quick reply to this question. I remember that sometimes ago, means few years ago, or maybe many years ago, WHO, World Health Organization, has brought out a book where there are no doctors. Okay, and this book is unique in the sense that it has very less text and more graphics, images, illustrations into it. But the purpose of this book was that what happens in an area where there is no doctor? Do we allow the people to remain unwell? So taking that analogy, now think of what happens when there are no teachers in those areas. Do we want our students, our children to remain ignorant, uneducated like that? And this thing, it has given rise to some interesting things. Like we talk of either paperless office or less paper office. So something similar to is that say like teacherless institutions or less teacher institutions, where these are. And how we can nowadays, due to the technologies, means please don't beat me up, but there is a famous joke that a person was having a t-shirt going into the market, and the caption was that I don't use Google because my wife knows everything. So when the Google knows everything, the facilities available to people, it is the age of self-learning. We need to prepare our students to be self-learner. We need to be better learner, and we need to become a fast learner, because things change very quickly. And for these things, I believe that these online courses where there are no teachers, these are the teachers, and that's why we use them.
That kind of reminds me of Sugata Mitra's Hole in the Wall. Do we need
Yes.
teacher? I mean, I always think of that as a
Yes.
teacher. But yeah, that's an amazing perspective. All right, so we're going to open up. So one at a time, feel free to unmute your mic. Add your perspective. What is your perspective? And do you have a question? Feel free to ask.
I will add, hi, I'm Yadida, and I will add to what Professor Ebba mentioned. In my doctoral research, I wrote about data literacy and focused on online educators. And because many schools and districts, when they assess students, they focus mostly on the standardized test and looking at that number. And when data literacy comes, it's different than assessment literacy. So we need to look at the different data sources, like you mentioned, demographics, motivation, attendance. It's like if it's online, to check how many times they log into the course, and their learning style. So this is a great subject, and how we can bring it to educators. So when they evaluate students, they need to look at a holistic perspective and learn from the different sources that they have, and not just at the number, the score that the student received at the test and at the end of the unit, or the final test. So that's I think a very important subject when we look at not just evaluating the students, evaluating many other things in our lives. So I was able to relate to that. So thank you.
Nellie, may I comment on this?
Feel free. This is open, so feel free to unmute and
thank you very much,
speak.
Roxana, for mentioning that. I didn't mention it especially in my presentation, but in all, of course, in all the models, assessment is one dimension to look at. And that is, of course, when we talk about online learning, maybe the first thing we have to look at is about exactly what you are talking about, evaluation and assessment, because the rest will be according to that, if it should be aligned. And as our colleague Dave Cormier is saying, and proposing first of all, he's proposing the rhizomatic perspective, and then he's proposing that the society should be the curricula. And if that is an ambition, then we also need to have a different kind of assignments. I mean, not just fact and figures, exactly what you're saying, but how can you be a responsible, active, democratic, whatever citizen in a global world? I mean, that is what education is about. And what you are saying, Ramesh, as well, about to be a self-directed learner and to learn, because we talk very much today also about lifelong learning. So the most important is to learn how to learn.
That's a bottom.
Change the assessment, nothing will change.
But that's a bottom up. And what we have in most parts of the world, unfortunately, and that's what I felt, how unfortunate the teachers aren't the ones that are, managing education. It's the governments and, university policies and so on. And for whatever reasons, they're the policymakers and they make the decisions. we
Oh,
can
well,
only do what we
I wanted-
can.
Yeah, I wanted to just again piggyback from that discussion. I wanted to mention that the best education system is considered to be Finland, and that's what they redesign right now. What they did, they removed subject area curriculum. What they came up with, they teach students kind of based on project-based learning. So students are exploring the current topics, as what Ebba was saying, and that's, they are forced to use different areas, different subjects in order to solve the problem. And that's what we need today. We need to develop those problem solving skills, democratic values, and how we can do this, not lecturing, not telling students what to do, but engage them in exploration, their independent exploration, and applying those things in real life. And that's how we prepare them for the future.
Yes, but real life is what they tell the teachers to do, what the university decides for you, Ludmila. And you all, I mean, we all know that, you know, it's, what are we going to do?
As you mentioned, Finland.
Not get a salary? You can't do what you want. That's the thing.
As you mentioned, Finland, Ludmila, and Finland is quite close to me.
Yes.
Sweden. So, and I know quite a lot about Finland and I have many colleagues. It is totally right what you are saying, that they have recently changed their this subject-orientated curriculum. But what is also true for Finland, and maybe that is, which maybe is why they always rank very high in the PISA studies, for example, is not so much about, sorry to say, but it's not so much about the curriculum and the content and this kind of things. It is because, first of all, education is very, very, very important in Finland. To become a teacher is maybe something that one of the hardest things you can do, because it's very, very hard to be enrolled in a teacher training program. So that is one aspect. In some countries, as we know, they take people from the street more or less. And also uneducated.
And also to teach, they have to have master's degree in order to teach.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then another thing, which is also very important, and what maybe we have seen now during the pandemic as well, families are very, very involved in the school and with the children, and they're always, when they have dinner and this kind of things, they always, this is the hot topic of the day. So, I mean, I think this is, I took some time to say this because it has been quite a lot, both researched, but also discussed due to the PISA studies. That this, again, the context is very, very important.
Yes. Cultural, yes.
And the cultural aspects as well, yes.
Actually, Ebba, Ludmila, and I had a chance to visit a high school in Tampere in Finland. So we got first with a principal who took us around. So we really got the feel of what happens in Finland. Ludmila, I'm sure you remember that.
Of course. And that's why I followed and many of my students actually did the research about Finnish education, because I want them to excite and see that there are different ways of teaching and approaching education and teaching and learning. And of course, teachers are very respected in Finland. Yeah.
They also have very high salary.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's respect. That's respect. Yes.
Anyone else from the audience, please feel free, as you did, to share your thoughts and questions. Everything that you have to say is important because it's coming from you. That's what I tell my students. Any thoughts on what you do and how you do it and why you do it? I mean, we've all been involved in Zooming. Actually, what do you prefer? That might be a question. What do you prefer, Zooming or an LMS? Is this online learning for you? Would you rather do this as a course, give Zoom classes? or LMS or both? Or, I don't know.
Yeah, and while people are thinking, Dr. Never also raised an interesting question, and she was thinking, and she's having a question about how to develop students' leadership skills through group work.
Is they raising her
It's
hand?
not exactly leadership, if it's okay, just to make it accurate. I'm the head of the program of how to become a group leaders in non-academic college. And one of the main problems we just faced when all this pandemic had been started is how to not transfer, because we immediately understand we cannot transfer the offline to online group process. So it is a huge and still huge issue we discussed in the team. Because on one hand, we would like to teach them the content, but as well as all of us understand group, how to become a group leader, you have to understand also the process and experience it. So one solution, no group. Oh, you did ask in a chat, it's a group or team? No, group. Because some of the group process are in team, but team, okay? Each team is a group, but not each group is a team. Let's put it on this way. So even in Sunday, when we have a meeting last Sunday, we still had a discussion about how well and what should we do in Zoom in order just to teach this important for our point of view issue. And I will be really, really glad to hear your point of view. I can tell you one thing, I'm also organizational psychologist. So immediately and intuitively, I just use some of the tools we used to implement in group offline, like a simulation, role play, that we just know from offline to online. We structured this, okay? But we did it intuitively. We didn't, so I'm really curious to hear your point of view regarding how to just, measure this, how to just to be. I hope so that I'm.
Yes, go ahead, Roxana.
Roxana.
Yes.
Yeah, I can tell you that in Israel at this point there is a study going on that looks at the well-being of students, comparing groups that are exposed to simulation and groups that are not exposed to simulation. And it is ongoing now as we speak. In fact, this study is supposed to end at the end of this semester, and it's done in several institutions. Our institution is one of them, but it's done in several. And I think it will be interesting to look at that we also have, so of course we have a control group that doesn't have simulation, but still answers the questionnaire several times during the semester to see what happens to them without the simulation. And then there are groups that do the simulation. And we will see.
Is it on Zoom? Sorry, is it synchronous, or are you talking about?
It's synchronous. It's on Zoom, it's synchronous.
Excellent. That should be a really good study.
And they are exposed, I think, to eight simulations from the field. I mean, the simulations can be a little bit changed, adjusted to the field. My students are in a master program in managing educational systems. So the simulations that they are exposed to are about dilemmas that principals face during the coronavirus period. Okay.
Thank you very much. I wish really to hear your point of view, all this, experts. It's really, something special to me. How do you see this challenge?
Well, in my experience, how I engage students and how I monitor group dynamics. During the course, I assign students, I give students a facilitator role. And giving different projects, I change those facilitators. And besides that, and in the beginning of the course, I create Google group contracts. When I create groups in the beginning of the course, I ask them to create a contract where I outline how they will meet with each other, how they will assign facilitators in the group, and how they will resolve conflict. What is the conflict resolution's ways? Because I am the last instance. And if there is a conflict, what will you do? What you will do, how you will connect it. So they have to exchange the email addresses and telephone numbers, because I usually use, this is my kind of approach to teach through cooperative learning. I do a lot of group projects, and students sometimes, when they come to the class, to the course, they hate when they hear that it's Google, because they said, all my previous life in high school, I was doing all the job. I don't like to work in a group. But what I do also, then I say that you will be working in groups and you will be evaluating each other. So I created special individual group forms, when after each project, they have to submit that form where they evaluate themselves, what they contribute to the project. They evaluate each partner. There is a special form, group processing form, and they have to mention if they gave 4 or they have 5 or they gave 3, they have to provide comments why. And then in the last summary, they have to write how their work, how their group work was, how the project was, what they satisfied, and what they can do next time better. So this how I managed. But it's interesting, and I use this also during, for example, just a week ago, we did a project on American Native tribes. And it was group projects. So I assigned students, it's a jigsaw. I use jigsaw in this project. So students were assigned subtopics and they were presenting. Then I created group big breakout rooms and they were working. But I provided them the template. I provided them the categories and also evaluation on the bottom. So because you are future teachers, you have to see, and I provide criteria. So when they design, they have to present as if they are like rehearsing their own teaching skills. So they are presenting the topic, but they evaluate each other and they evaluate each group. So it really helps. In the beginning, it's hard because they are not used to it. But by the end of the course, right, yesterday they were teaching in Google Classroom, they were teaching lessons. And I hear how matured they are throughout the course. It's already last weeks of the semester, but their feedback is just really mature. They give, sometimes I don't even have anything to say after I hear their suggestions that everybody has to say. So, and I use sometimes 3 classes in a wish or three stars in a wish. And I also provide for each type of teaching, I provide different templates, how they have to reflect. But they work in a group. And this semester, actually, there were some conflicts. The conflict was, and why? There was a conflict because they were working in Google Slides, and one of the students added work and somebody removed that work. And the student was, she was also minority student, and she accepted it as a, you know, it was like
she took it personally.
Act of racism. So that it sounds like I don't matter. So, and she raised it, and I used that situation, and I proposed when the next class happened, I made up a situation, and I said, how would you act? What would you say? And I used her letter, and I asked the permission if I used the letter, but and she said yes, do it, Dr. Smirnova. So what I did, I made a kind of letter and said, so that's what happens in the classroom. So how would you react? What would you do? And then students started speaking up. And then at the end I said, well, what would you say if I tell you that it happened in our class? And then the student spoke up, and she said that she regretted that she didn't stand up for herself. And I gave her a chance to speak up. So she spoke up, and then after that, it was interesting that when students didn't like some comments, that they were too personal or they were too, so they started speaking up. And it created even an atmosphere of interaction and bonds.
Thank you, Ludmila. We've got 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Sorry.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that Israel developed, because of the problems that you mentioned about teamwork and about Zoom and everything that was mentioned about synchronous environments. Israel, SMORE, I don't know if you're familiar. Everybody familiar with SMORE here? It's an Israeli tech company, education company, SMORE. I know it's used a lot in the United States. Maybe it's not used as much in Israel, but they developed something called Field Trip. I added the link in the chat box. This is for teamwork. It's not Zoom. So they learned from Zoom because of what happened in Israel and other countries. They learned from what was going on Zoom, from all the comments, from parents complaining and all the issues involved with the Zooming during lockdowns, and it's still happening. And they developed something called Field Trip. It's already there. They're still working on it, of course, but your input would be great. I mean, I don't work for them, but I know that, working together, we can make a difference with SMORE Field Trip. You can start using it right away and see how it works for teamwork. And you can have leaders and so on. Exactly what you do in a workshop or in a face-to-face classroom, you can have it happening on SMORE Field Trip. So this is something that everybody can use it. It's completely free right now. It's not going to be free for long. So I don't know. I think if you're using it, they may give it to you for free forever. I don't know, because they're very appreciative. We've got 3 minutes. Yes, Ramesh, final words.
Okay. When I gave training to our faculty members on Moodle, so we have a school of education and there is this teacher. I told her about the wiki activity in Moodle. And after her semester, when the semester was over, she came to me and she was so happy that Dr. Ramesh, I was not aware that this activity will be so wonderful. The wiki activity, and she was all happy, and she made her whole course as a single activity on wiki after that. So I think that can also be tried.
Yeah, not just that. When you talk about Moodle, people aren't aware of what's happening on Moodle. But you can also have teaming up, where actually students team up. There's grouping. So there's a lot of independence and a lot of leadership development going on through the Moodle permissions as well, because you can give your students permission to have teacher rights and to get all kinds of rights. So I think Moodle is the perfect platform. It's got a lot of activities. It's more than content based. So
and then just one more item just to think about, Dr. Neva. Sometimes I use choice in Moodle, give topics for students, and so they choose the topics and they don't know that they will be learning about the same topic. And when they are ready, they come to class and I create breakout rooms and I make them work together, discuss, and then share. For example, a Jamboard is a wonderful place to share things. So, and then they work together, they discuss things, and then they present. They have to present where the consensus is. So it's another way of, again, to monitor students' group dynamics.
Try the group selection, Ludmila. You're going to find it amazing. It's not like the old choice group there are some really good ones now on Moodle. All right, so I think our time is up. We've got 1 minute. If anyone wants to say anything or request anything, we've got a workshop coming up in next week, actually, with Ludmila and I, but everybody's invited. Of course, Ramesh and Ebba, you're also invited to join us.
Shira has a, Shira.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead. Yes, please.
I just want to say thank you. It's an excellent opportunity to learn from the experts, because we have been forced into this situation of teaching online, and some of us are doing it better. I'm like talking about my team. Some of us are doing it better. Some of us are not so good. So I wouldn't want to force any evaluation process on them, but I do want to know where we stand. So some ideas that came up here today are so great for me to try and map out and move the process and be better at teaching online because of all the reasons. So this is just perfect for me. And thank you for.
That's great to know. So
Thank you.
next week, you'll get a chance to practice. All right.
Can I answer to you this e-excellence, which I mentioned? You can do that as a self-evaluation directly online. And that is, and you answer it, you can do it either yourself or with your team or whatever. And then you can go through it, and then you see what it is about, and you go through it, and you got automatically an email where you have your eventually weaknesses, and that is conducted from the manual. So it is automatically, but it is a good start. You can see where you are at, as you were asking for.
Yeah, excellent. I already put the link on my, sure, thank you. Thank you so much.
And then of course you will go further on, you can have external reviews, but that is an excellent start. And also to have a discussion with your team. I mean, that is also
Sure.
good.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yes, talking is very important. All right, so thank you, everyone. Thank you for being part of this, and we'll see you next week.
Yes,
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you all.
Bye for now.
Very much. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.